Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back in War Thunder and it's time to have a look at Operation H.E.A.T again with a more of a critical analysis. But before we do that, I do want to point yourself in certain directions. So right now for Operation H.E.A.T, there is actually kind of a warm-up going on for the community. So the idea is, and obviously this works in Guardian's favor as well because they get basically free advertising out of it, but for every 1500 likes, comments, retweets, we get a booster. Then every 2500 universal backups, and then of course 10,000 you get a decal. Now the thing is, this isn't just on Twitter, this is also on Facebook, on Russian Twitter, the War Thunder RU, and then on places like VK and Instagram as well. So if you take part, you can of course get some free stuff, and we can do it as a community by obviously retweeting and liking these things. You can do it multiple times. So what I mean by this is you can do it on their War Thunder Twitter, then the War Thunder RU Twitter, then on the Facebook, and so on and so forth. And there is some additional information. So there is a code that you have to activate on the War Thunder website. The code is H.E.A.T, or capital letters. If you don't know where to input the code, you basically go to your name at the top, go to your profile, hit the activate code button, and type in H.E.A.T, all in capitals, and you will get access to the prizes which are coming after, a certain date. So the code must be activated by the 31st of July, 9 p.m. GMT. So you've got around 4 days to be able to do that. And then also the rewards will be distributed on the 5th of August. Boosters will be provided as a single item for multiple battles, and you activate the code there, as we talked about. So make sure to activate the code. Make sure to retweet and like all of the different social media platforms that War Thunder has going on right now, so we can all get access collectively to some nice things. The decal, I just want to say, if this is similar to the decals that they've talked about here, since we don't see any of these flame decals, I don't really like them. I would much more prefer them to be a bit more cartoony than realistic. I think the cartoony nature definitely fits way more with War Thunder's general themes. So yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer, but it's still a nice decal. Anyway, let's go through the Operation H.E.A.T. We're going to go through it in 3 separate ways. The first one is looking at the challenges themselves, the marks of distinctions. Then I'm going to talk about the vehicles, whether they're good event vehicles, whether I like them or whether I don't overall, if we compare them to previous ones. And then also we're going to talk about factors which hopefully we can see going forward from other events. So what I'm going to do is compare, first of all, the marks of distinction from events past. So the Festive Quest of 2017-18, Operation Summer didn't really have any quests. Good Old Summer definitely did though. Then of course the Festive Quest of 2018-2019, Sea Voyage, and then we have also the Battlefield Engineer event, which didn't have quests attached to it. So I've created a nice little Excel spreadsheet here. Unfortunately, because we now have naval as part of it, it's kind of hard to fit it on the screen, so we're going to go through it by each part. As you can see from 2017, so this is 2017 going all the way downwards to 2019, so make sure to read it from top to bottom. The different colors, what they basically mean is, if we go over here, this one is they were changed on the next event, and this means they were altered from the previous event, and this means they were kept the same. So if you can see, compared to, like, supporting fire was taken away after the Festive Quest tankers of 2017, and it was replaced with another challenge, which was the capture 10 zones. And then also the assists were replaced, the 2018 points were replaced with the assists. So you can see that there was a bunch of things which were changed between them, just like this one was changed as well, if we just want to do that. And what this overall means is the events over time, if you compare like the Festive Tank Quest to the later ones and the later ones, they got easier. They got easier over time, and that is something that we're seeing kind of now. They're not getting easier this time, they're actually getting slightly harder, but they're getting slightly harder in very negligible ways. So the last event that we had, which kind of had this mark of extinctions idea, is the Festive Quest. If we, just negate this one for now, just because this was just for naval, so we'll talk about it when we get to naval. But for tanks, the festive quest of earlier this year, with the T-30 and stuff like that, most of the tasks have stayed the same. The only one which has actually changed is the amount of kills that you get or need for the quest, and it's only gone up by 5 in arcade, 3 in RB, and 1 in simulator. So I don't think that's a massive difference. I actually think you're talking about maybe half a game or 1 game there, and generally that's not the one that you focus on anyway. Normally you focus on the destroy 11 enemies in 1 battle, and as you do that, you normally get the destroy 45 enemies anyway. So adding, 3 more kills in realistic, I don't think is a big deal. So these are still very good marks of distinction tasks, which I think have slowly improved over time. I think they got it perfectly right in the festive quest earlier this year, and to see it being continued, I think they've kind of just hit a winning formula, and they're going to just stick with it. The Operation Heat task for planes, the difference between the one from the festive quest earlier this year and Heat is now you have to get 7 assists instead of 6. That is the only difference between them. So once again, they believe they've hit a winning formula here, and I think they have. These tasks are not too hard. They are quite easy to do, and also there are tasks which kind of emphasize different parts of the game. I have talked about in the past, I would love different areas of the game emphasized for tasks. Like, I would love to see stuff like single missions brought in, but I'd like to bring them in a different way, which we'll talk about later. So these generic tasks for the marks of distinction are incredibly good. They are very fair on the individual, and I think going forward these should be used. These should be used going forward. The last one is the ships one. So we've only had ship tasks for 2 events, and one was of course the Sea Voyage event, or the Leningrad and the PBM event, and nothing has really changed too much with those events, apart from they've got rid of this one, which is sink 5 ships, either cruisers or destroyers, in any combination whilst controlling aircraft or naval vessels in multiple battles. So instead of forcing people to play the higher BRs, what they've added in is destroy 3 enemies with torpedoes whilst, capture 10 points in navals while controlling ships. They have changed these ones, but what they've done is they've also altered this one. So they have got rid of this one, and they've changed it with finish the battle on the first place in naval battles. So one of the problems that can happen with marks of distinction, we already have a limiter on what ranks you're allowed to use. So for ground and air, it's rank 3 to whatever the top rank is. For ships, it is rank 2 to rank 4. Well, if you add in this qualifier, what happens is that means that you can't really use rank 2 ships. Instead, you have to use rank 3 because you have to kill destroyers and cruisers, or you limit yourself to 4 of the 4 of the tasks instead of the whole 5. So getting rid of that and changing it with the finish the battle on the first place in naval battles, I think is completely fine. This means that you're adding a skill element to it. It means that it's once again set it up so you have one type of challenge to work for while you get all the other ones. So just like the destroy 11 enemies in 1 battle, or destroy 11 enemies in 1 battle for the planes and the tanks, now what you have is the finish battle in the first place, which I think works a lot better for naval, since you have this like cumulative damage idea going on. So it's not just based on the amount of kills that you get, it is more based on the amount of damage that you do to enemy vehicles. So for me, this is a good change, it's a positive change, and it gets rid of the limiter that people had in naval forces. They've also reduced the amount of torpedo kills that you need. It used to be 5, now it's 3, so that's become easier, and now it's only captured 10 points, where before it was 15. So they've made the ship's task a hell of a lot easier than it was before when it came to the Sea Voyage event of 2019. So overall, if we have a look at these events, they've made the tankers one very, very slightly harder. They've made the planes one, I mean, you need 1 more assist. So this, you need 3 more kills. This, you need 1 more assist. And they've made the ship one a hell of a lot easier. Now, the thing is, what you've got to remember is we haven't had an event yet which has actually culminated in all three different types coming together under marks of distinction. So even though you have three different sets of marks of distinction here, normally you would only have two before, or even one in the form of the Sea Voyage event. So even though these tasks haven't really got a lot harder, and in the ship case got a lot easier, you're still doing more tasks overall over the 2-day period. So even though they should be around the same, you're going to have to do more work overall to be able to get the Operation Heat all of the vehicles. Because normally there's only 4 on offer, now there's 6, so if you're a completionist like I am, it's going to be a little bit harder for you as an individual to be able to do it. But at least they've made the achievements overall a lot easier. I mean, I'm thinking of back in the day with stuff like Summertime Madness. If you had a look at some of those achievements you had to do and compare it to these ones, like this is a breeze in the park. I think one day I might actually do a video looking at Summertime Madness and just show you how ridiculous some of the challenges were, because those were every day. And some of them were like kill 30 AI ships in aircraft. So you would have to hope that you got on aerialistic maps which had ships on them. Like just stuff like that, which is incredibly RNG based and something that you can't control. So from that point, if we look at these events, the Marks of Distinctions events, we're in a very positive place. So because of that, this event is going to be harder than the Festive Quest and the Sea Voyage event because there's just more on offer. So if you're a completionist, then this is going to be harder for you. But if you're just an average player who just wants specific vehicles, this is actually technically easier for you because of the fact that the Marks of Distinction are overall easier. So that's great. It just means a bit more work for the tryhards and a bit less work for other people, and that's fine. The other thing as well is, as long as the prices don't change, the prices should be in GE not too bad for these vehicles if they stick to the 999 or the 899, depending on what they go for. Generally, these vehicles, at least the top tier ones, are normally worth about 10,000 GE. Obviously, they're available on the market as well. I think that's a good, positive move. I know a lot of people don't like the market, but at the end of the day, the market gives us an opportunity for people who enter the game later on to get their hands on these vehicles. One feature that I did like from the Good Old Summer events, which I wish was brought back here, is for the Good Old Summer events, if you got your hands on the SD KFC 2343, what you were able to do, as you can see, is exchange certain vouchers. So you could actually exchange something like the 2343 for a other machine. You could actually exchange it for one of the other armored cars which were in previous events. Something that we don't see in this event here is that being the case. There is no, like, if I get the P59, I can't trade it in for like an F7, F3, and I think that would be a nice functionality to add. But then again, if they want to push the market idea, then obviously that's not going to go so well. So yeah, the fact that they're all couponed, this is wonderful. As I said, it's more opportunities for people to buy them, more money in the pockets of whoever is selling them, and also gauging themselves, as long as the prices aren't too ridiculous. But to be honest, I don't think any of these are going to be. I'm sure a lot of people are going to sell these. Probably the most expensive will be the P59A, but who knows? Who knows going forward? I'm not an economist. The other thing as well, when it comes to the vehicles, I like the fact that there is now more selection. So instead of just having ground and air, we now have naval involved. So before, we had a lot of events like the Good Old Summer events, the Operation Summer, Festive Quests, which were just tanks and planes. After the Sea Voyage event and the success of the Leningrad and also the Battlefield Engineer event, I think having this standard for your general event is wonderful. Having 2 planes, two ground vehicles and 2 ships is the way to go. Even if the events overall are a little bit harder because you have to do more work, you open it up to everybody who wants to be able to get these vehicles. And as long as you don't put something like the HMS Tiger in, which is, top tier, I think it works incredibly well. And with these vehicles, I think it just works because of the vehicles themselves. So I like this setup. The only critique really would be, it would be nice to, in some points in the future, maybe add in a helicopter. We do have 4 branches for a decent amount of nations. Now, maybe it'll come next time once like British helicopters are added, Italian and Japanese helicopters are added in their full tech trees instead of just, the single premium for Japan. So maybe in the future, when the majority of nations, or more nations, I should say, because the majority do have helicopters right now, but the more nations have helicopters, I hope to see a premium one. I really do, or maybe not a premium one, but at least a gift one when it comes to these operations. That would be the next step for vehicles. But right now, this 2-2-2 setup, really good, really positive, really like that. The other thing as well, so let's go through the vehicles themselves. Are they good gift vehicles? So starting off with the BT-7, you've got a prototype vehicle. It's got an interesting little catch to it, with the F-32 76mm on it. It's got good speed behind it. It doesn't have a lot of survivability. Overall, it's a fun little light vehicle, and it shouldn't really fit in the tech tree because of the fact that it's a one-off premium, and also because of the fact that it's just one of those weird vehicles which you wouldn't really see a lot of. It also has, if you really wanted to, you could throw in a standard tech tree vehicle alongside of it. This is something that I talk about quite a lot, where I would like to see a standard tech tree vehicle alongside it if you're going to, at least the opportunity to add one if you're going to add in a vehicle like this. And the BT-7 F-32, it does have one. It's called the L-11 BT-7. Even though the L-11 didn't really fit too well in the turrets, the F-32 also didn't fit greatly in the turret of the BT-7, so therefore you could easily just put it in the tech tree. It really depends on the BR of the BT-7 F-32. It definitely has the opportunity of being the best in class when it comes to these light tanks, but with the addition of the SDKF C234s over the last few years and the AEC armored car and also the Boarhound, it is nice to see the Soviets come on board with something that's kind of similar. A lot of speed behind it. Even though it's still tracked, it has a good gun, it's good speed. It should overall be quite fun for the Rank 2 machine. The Orbal 74 HVG, once again, a great pick for a premium. It has the access to, of course, the 60mm, which we can see a massive expansion into with a bunch of other really interesting vehicles, like, as we talked about, the Chaffee with it and many other different designs. And also it has a standard tech tree equivalent, the Orbal 74, which we already have. Now, the HVG is going to be a higher BR than it because of its gun, but we're going to have to see how that gun performs. Overall, it's a great pick because of the fact that we already have a standard tech tree equivalent. It's going to bolster that rank 5 of Italy, which definitely needs help, in my opinion. But then again, it really depends on what the BR of this thing is. I think 7.0 would be fine for it. The BF-110C6, it's a BF-110 with a different gun attached. The MK101, just like the 60mm from the Orbal 74, we haven't had it in game before. So this is a new gun, which is coming to the game, which is exciting because the MK101 was used on many different things, including the HS129 and the HE177. So to see it being mounted on a vehicle which is going to be premium, I mean, maybe they're testing it to see if they want to add it to different vehicles. Seeing a HE177 with the attachment on the front of it with the 2 MK101s would be scary as all hell, even though it wouldn't be very useful. It would just be funny to see overall. But the C6 has tech tree equivalents. The C7 is the bomber version, where the C6 is the Zastora version. So overall, they're both great picks, and the fact that we already have BF-110s with similar performance, I think is completely fine. The only thing, as I said in the BF-110 video, it would be nice to see, I would like to see some Mosquitoes at some point. And the heavy fighter line for Britain has not really been neglected. There's a lot of Bow fighters, there's the Hornets, of course, the Whirlwinds, but mosquitoes are incredibly popular when it comes to Britain, and therefore I'd just like to see a few more of them. The P59A is a great pick for a premium once again. You could easily throw in a standard tech tree equivalent with the P59B. The P59A is very iconic. It should also have access to bombs and rockets, and it's one of those fighters which in history didn't do too well because the fact that the jet technology wasn't where it needed to be. The fact that propeller aircraft was still going faster than it, or piston-engined aircraft, I should say, means that you can give it a crazy low BR. A lot of people have talked about 5.7 or 6.0. I think it will be a little bit higher than that just because of its general flight characteristics. But the main thing is with it is it has the option, it has something unique to it, which is, of course, the fact that it was the first US jet, and also the fact that we don't have a rank 4 jet in the game. Even though it should be similar BR to some rank 5 jets, they're marketing it as a rank 4 jet, which at the end of the day just means that you can't research rank 6s with it very efficiently. So yeah, that's not great. But the fact that it's a rank 4 jet, the fact that it's the first ever American jet, and also the fact that, it has good armament behind it, and it's not going to be overpowered. None of these that I've talked about so far are game-breaking. They're not meta-defining, The BT-7 is going to be really good at its BR, but it's not going to be meta-defining because at that BR, you have a bunch of other armored cars running around doing exactly the same thing as is. So the P-59A, not going to be meta-defining. The Orbital, it's too light to be meta-defining, and the BF-110, there are just better versions in the tech tree. The River class is an interesting one. So I've seen a lot of people compare it to the Flower class and say that it's incredibly similar to it, and it's just not. I understand the comparison because you have a look at the Isle class, you have a look at the Flower class, and then you have a look at the River class, and you're like, oh, well, they all had the same general job, they all had the same general guns, and all of this stuff. But with the K246, the River class, it has access to the the 240mm, it has access to the 2 and some 20mm, and also it's a completely different design to something like a Flower class. So it is a unique vehicle in the sense, even though it has some standard tech tree equivalents in the form of the Isle and the Flower, which are just slightly worse than it. So yeah, overall, when it comes to that, I think that's good. Also with the River class, there were over, I think, 150 of them made. So if you wanted to put in a standard tech tree one, you could also do that, which would be nice at some point. And the fact that it has the 40s on it is really interesting because that means that it could be a game changer in the amount of damage it can do to a lot of ships, but with its overall ideas behind it, the fact that it's so big, it's never really going to be meta-defining because yes, it could dominate for 4 to 5 minutes in a naval arcade battle at the start, and then it'll just get bombed. So if those 40s don't come online fast enough, then the River class will just die. And also because it's so big and cumbersome, it will also mean that it'll just get bombed from high altitude, so the 40mm will not save you. So overall, once again, it's not meta-defining, but it's a unique vehicle and it's got some unique ideas to it, including the 40s and the extra 102. The H.E.A.T, when it comes to it, is probably the least unique out of all of them. It is a different class of destroyer that we haven't seen before, but when it comes to its general armament, it is just a mixture of other ideas that we've already seen. So the H.E.A.T is the Shiratsuyu class, and I don't think we have one of them in the game, but if you compare it to the Fubuki, so the Fubuki has 13.2s for AA, the H.E.A.T has 2 40mm. Then if you compare the main armaments, the H.E.A.T has 5 127s, and the Fubuki has 6 127s, and when you compare torpedoes, the H.E.A.T, I believe, has 8, whereas the Fubuki has 9. So incredibly similar in armament and also size and shape, but then again, how different can you make a destroyer at the end of the day? A lot of them were incredibly standardized when it came to World War II. What I'm happy with is this isn't a Leningrad. So The Leningrad is a really good premium for the Soviets, and the reason for that is because it's just a better version of a standard tech tree vehicle, just like a lot of the other destroyers, which were, the Carl Gulster, the Project 7U, the Haida. All of these were better versions of their standard tech tree equivalents. They normally had more anti-air on them, they had more guns. So you were literally just paying for power with them. There was no way around it, kind of like with the OF-40 Mark II MTCA. It's just a faster OF-40 Mark II. Like, there is no debate about it. You are paying for a better machine that is sat in the tech tree. And I generally don't like this idea. So when the Leningrad came around, I had that issue with it. When it comes to H.E.A.T, I don't have that issue with this because of the fact that this is going to be a 4.0 machine, or maybe a 4.3 machine, where there are better options in the tech tree. So this is, for me, the perfect premium. I know a lot of people, and I should say a perfect gift premium, not a standard premium. I know a lot of people like to get really good meta-defining machines when it comes to these events, but for me, because of the way that the events are structured, they're not ongoing, and if people have to pick them up on the markets where there is a limited supply and the prices are only going to go up because these vehicles are probably never going to come back. The issue is with these vehicles, what you end up with is a select few people who have access to them who can go stomp face. The KV-220 is the best example of this. The Ersatz is also a great example. The T5, the Type 65, all of these vehicles are incredibly good at their BR. And what this means is you get a lot of veteran players who bring them out just to stomp people. So with the H.E.A.T not being top of its class when it comes to the destroyers, or top of its genre, what would you say, top of its type, so it's not top of its type of destroyer, you can't just roll it out and bash face against everything. Instead, you're going to have to play it a little bit differently. So I think it's a great pick because of that. On top of this as well, the Japanese just got released, so therefore it'll get more people involved in getting these Japanese machines. So out of the 6 vehicles here, they're all great when it comes to an event. There is no real downside for any of these. These are not meta-defining. These are not machines which are going to take over the game. They all have their specific playstyles, which is really interesting, and they all have their little quirks, and they're all unique in their own way, but they also can all have tech tree equivalents. This is wonderful. This is, at least for me, when it comes to my criteria, these are all perfect. So all I can say is great job. On top of this, if we have a look at the other marks of distinction, so the flame decals and the ammunition decorations, I mean, we're going to have to see what they are, but as I said, if they're anything like this, I'm just not interested. Like, they do not look good. I would rather have some tropical decals, umbrellas would be a nice idea. Like, why not have a decal which is, where is it gone? Why not have a decal which is like this here? Or why not a thermometer? Something which has a little bit of pizzazz and a little bit of more colors. Like, think Hawaiian, like bright green, bright blues, bright reds. A lot of vibrancy going on is always really nice to see. Or just red and a little bit of yellow, which is really just not great. So yeah, that might be an issue going forward. The ammunition decoration, we'll have to see what it is. If it's just random shells, that would be cool as hell. If it's just stuff like the if it's just stuff like the tank shells and things like that, I'll be looking forward to that. The other thing as well is the camouflages. So if you actually have a look, you can see the camouflages that are generally available for these vehicles, or are going to be available for the marks of distinction. Most of them are pretty standard. So the Aerocobra, it has the Aerocomet, sorry, I knew I would do that. The Aerocomet has, of course, the green drape, and then it has the silver skin, the all-metal skin, as I like to know it as. So you can already see the camos in most of these, and then of course you have the standard camo, which is this, then you got the painted camo. They could be a little bit more expansive with these camos, especially with stuff like this, which is just like a bog standard forest camo for the BT. I think they could go a little bit further with a bit more pizzazz. Maybe some historical camos would be best. Since the K246 was an actual ship, ship, and obviously the Udachi was an actual ship, there must be a way of making it so the machine is tied more to its history, or a squadron, or a commander, which was about. So I think historical skins would be the best way for it. And then if you have a look at this machine, no, don't do this to me. You have a look at this machine, you can see that there are markings all the way down the fuselage, which I think is kind of nice, and hopefully, yeah, they're available on this as well. But still, stuff like that is nice attention to detail, but having like a historical skin I think would be better than just these generic skins. Going forward, so we've talked about the tasks, we've talked about the vehicles, and we need to talk about stuff which is kind of missing from this event, which would be nice to see in other events. Obviously, the general setup of the Marks of Distinction idea is completely fine. It works pretty well for the most part. But I personally did enjoy the mechanics which were on offer for the Operation Summer event. I thought the workshop idea was really interesting. I thought it was intuitive once, it worked out. And something that was really nice from this event, the Battlefield Engineer event and the April Fool's event before it, it felt like the community came together and worked it out collectively. And that is something that I haven't really seen in War Thunder for a long time. I haven't seen, a lot of people working together to try and get a common goal and to try and help other people when it came to it. So something like the Operation Heat, because there's no collective achievements here, there's no community achievements like you see from the festive quests, like the lighting up of the Christmas tree. The only collective one, I suppose, is this, in a way, and that's just for marketing. So these are much more individual events, which don't really employ groups of people working together. Instead, what would be nice to see is some form of way of bringing that in the form of like a Battlefield Engineer event or an IS-7 event. But I think the way that you do it, is, as I've said before, the better way of doing like an IS-7 style event would be a monthly or tri-monthly event where you're able to earn the blueprint, and then you can earn parts and special parts, kind of like how they're doing squadron vehicles right now. So it would be an ongoing thing instead of something which is, in a very designated time period, such as the time period of 11 days, which the Battlefield Engineer event was. So for a standard event, Operation Heat is good, but it is kind of sad that, the IS-7 event, I hope it doesn't get lost in the ether because of the issues that the Battlefield Engineer event had, because the test flying idea that the I-180S had was really cool. Really love that idea. I hope they bring that back for an event in the future. The overall building workshop idea of the IS-7 event was really cool from a community point of view, and also just from a gameplay point of view. You actually felt like you were building something, you felt like you were working towards something, instead of just let's do some challenges and bang, it's here, So I really hope this style of event comes back, whether it comes back in like a monthly or bi-monthly idea. I think that would be better, but I just hope it does. I don't want it just to go to waste, because the ideas were good. This one was just completely screwed with the overbearing nature of the market. The other thing as well, when it comes to it, is the festive events. So, as we said, these are incredibly individual events. And one of the problems with that is it's very hard to bring people together under common goals if all of the tasks are pretty much individual tasks. The only ones which aren't are the win battles. Everything else is individual, independent ways to do stuff. So the way that you add on to that is through the lighting up of the Christmas tree on the Christmas event, or, gaining the baubles, which is basically doing extra challenges on top of stuff, which would be, an extra thing on top of what you already have, which you would grind out while doing the Marks of Distinction. And you could add a bunch of different things in here. So, try a PvE mission, try a single mission, complete a dynamic campaign, play a historical mission, a historical campaign. All of these things to get people interested in different parts of the game. And also you could give them decorations and maybe a specific vehicle like they did here. But the overall thing thing for me is this. That's what this event is missing. It is missing the community element. This is great for individual people. It's also great for individual people to make money because they can sell all of these coupons if they feel like it. But if we're talking about bringing a community together, there is none of that in this event, and that is only going to be added through stuff like this Festive Quest stuff. So hopefully going forward, I'm sure for the Festive Quest next year we'll have something similar to this, but just going forward it would be nice to see that. Even if, I mean, we do technically have another community thing, the squadron vehicles, they are community based in a way, so that is a good shout. But I think just having more and more stuff is always going to be better for the overall community. So yeah, more focus on community marks of distinction, let's say. A little bit less focus on individual marks of distinction, so we can all work together for some common goals. But if we're looking just overall at this event, it's looking great. There doesn't seem to be a catch to it. Maybe the GE prices might be a little bit high. The only catch is going to be the increased workload if you are a completionist, and the increased workload also comes with decreased requirements. So it might not even be an increased workload. It might just be something that takes a little bit more time. So overall, incredibly happy with this event. It's looking great. Just needs a little bit more on the community side of things. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Martinez, Moxie, Alobralo, Super Cacti, Grisvolk, E-Love Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.